everyone, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. Today's video is going to be a tag video and it is the 2 books, 1 stone video. And this tag's actually been going around for a while and I saw it originally on Gabby Reed's channel, and it is actually an original book tag from Sean the Book Maniac, and it was one of the ones I wanted to do and life gets in the way, but finally I'm getting to it. So I think it's just a fun tag video. So let's just dive into it. The first question is, what is the second to last book that you read? And I read / listened to Dear Wife by Kimberly Bell. And this is her most recent release. It was one of my most anticipated books of 2019. And I was a big fan of The Marriage Lie, which I read last year. And I was not at all disappointed with her latest book. So it's another domestic thriller suspense kind of a book, and it is about it comes from 3 different perspectives. I don't know why I'm stumbling about this. So it is Beth Murphy, and she is a woman who is on the run from her abusive husband, and then Sabine Hardison is a woman who has gone missing. So her husband Jeff has just come home from a business trip, and she was supposed to be out doing a real estate showing, and she just never came home again. And they wind up finding her car sort of abandoned in a parking lot, and it's the only clue they have to go on. And then Marcus is the police detective who was assigned to the Sabine's missing wife, missing woman case. So we see stories unfold through Beth's eyes, through Jeff's eyes, and then through Marcus's eyes. And I totally loved the audiobook. It has 3 different narrators for each part, which I'm becoming a bigger and bigger fan of. Having listened to Daisy Jones and the Six the time I'm filming this, I am just obsessed with these like full cast audiobooks. And this one is just, you don't quite know what's happening, you don't quite know who to believe, you're getting nuggets of the story, things are gradually unfolding, you're getting different perspectives about the same facts, which I love. There's definitely a little like Gone Girl vibe to it with the missing wife and kind of like the husband did it because the husband always does it. And there's like an element of media attention in the sense like in Gone Girl, how the media was on Nick and how Nick didn't quite respond the way people expected. So it's by no means a Gone Girl like ripoff or copycat or anything like that, but just that element of the missing wife and the eyes on the husband just gave me that feel, and I loved Gone Girl, so I loved it. So all in, totally enjoyed this book. I will say I had a hunch about something, and like I always get hunches, I like to think. And this one I actually was right about, but it did not change like my enjoyment of the book or anything. Like I was fully engrossed in it. Highly recommend if you're looking for a Kimberly Bell to pick up, if you're looking for a new domestic suspense thriller to pick up. I think you just hands down can't go wrong on this one. The next question is, what is the second book from the top of your TBR? And you guys know I don't make TBRs, so I don't have an answer to this question. I am still doing, I want to say Booktubeathon, the Reading Rush right now. So I filmed a whole video on that. By the time you guys see this, the Reading Rush is going to be over, but basically those books are on my list. And then most of this is on my list. So I'm such a mood reader. I don't know what I'm going to want to read next, but when I do, I'll let you know. The next question is to name 2 2-star reads. And I really wanted to try and go back to books that I had read before I came on BookTube so I can stop talking about the same stuff over and over again. So I kind of like went back through my Goodreads and went back through my lists, and I wanted to talk about The Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll, which is a book that came out a few years ago. I have since unhauled it because I didn't like it, which is why it's part of this question. And I probably held on to it longer than I should have because I loved the cover of it. I just think it was such a beautiful book, and there was so much hype around it being the next Gone Girl. And like I just said an answer or so ago, I love Gone Girl and I'm such a fan of it, but there was like this period of time where like everything was getting compared to that, and I was the girl who fell for it and was trying to recapture that Gone Girl vibe, and this book did not do it for me. So this is a book that is about this girl, I want to say her name is Annie, and she like went to this, I don't know if it was like a boarding school or like a prep school or whatever. She sort of did not have the best high school experience, and something like humiliating happened to her in high school, and it sort of scarred her. And like all these years later, she's like put together and beautiful, and she's engaged to this guy, and she's got this great career, and she's got money, and I don't remember what the TV show is, but she's like being interviewed for some sort of like news show, sort of about her and talking about her past, and she's got this secret. So I feel like it's not quite like Entertainment Tonight that she's being interviewed for, but it wasn't like CNN. So I think it was some sort of like lifestyle piece. But anyway, she basically is kind of like having her day of, you know, all these bad things happened to me in high school and look at me now. So we wind up seeing a lot of the story through flashback and seeing what happened to her in high school. And it all is like kind of my cup of tea. I mean, flashing back, returning to a hometown that you don't want to go back to, high school. It's all things that I love. But I did not love this book. And I will say, so sort of like out of the gate, trigger warning for rape, which I have read many books with violence and assault, and it is, you know, not the easiest thing to talk about, but it can be done well in a book, I would say. And the thing I didn't like about this book is sort of as the story continues to unfold and we figure out why she's the luckiest girl alive, I felt completely like bait and switch happened. Like I felt like extremely manipulated by the book, and I can best relate it to, bear with me, that movie that Rob Pattinson was in, Remember Me. I don't know if anybody remembers this movie. I will also say the only reason I got this movie is because Pierce Brosnan is in it, so I am not a Rob Pattinson fan. I was not a Twilight girl. I'm too old for that, clearly, because I was getting the movie for Pierce Brosnan. And if you have seen that movie, which I didn't enjoy, what made me completely hate that movie is like the last 5 minutes of it. And I feel like the writer, director, all of it completely manipulated the audience. I thought it was a horrible ending to the end of that movie gives me as much rage as the end of this book gives me. So, not a fan. My second 2-star read is All Is Not Forgotten by Wendy Walker. And coincidentally, this is also a book with trigger warnings about rape. And out of the gate, back cover kind of stuff, we learn that this high school girl goes to a party and winds up being pretty severely beaten and raped at this party, and it kind of opens in the hospital, and her parents are there and the doctors are there. And kind of the overarching concept of this book is that the doctors offer her parents offer to give her this drug, which is sort of this new cutting edge drug that's mostly used with soldiers and people in the military to help them forget traumatic experiences. So while they will still have the physical repercussions of whatever they went through, they will not have the memory of it. And the idea is that this is supposed to help them recover and be able to move on and be able to sort of be a survivor. And I thought it was a very interesting concept to the book, but the book took this like totally different path. And part of it is this girl working with a therapist to remember what happened that night because they want to catch the person that did it, because they don't know who attacked her. And it's sort of like she was given this drug without her consent. Her parents made the decision to give it to her, and then there's like another storyline going on with the psychiatrist and sort of all this other stuff that's going on in the town and with her parents and their marriage, and this poor girl who has all of the physical, again, evidence of what happened to her, but no memory of it, but yet she's in therapy being forced to try and remember what they made her forget. So I hated this book. I really did. And I mean, I didn't not like the writing, I didn't like the story, so I actually have other Wendy Walker on my shelf somewhere. Maybe up high. Yes, Emma in the Night, so I've heard good things about that. But All Is Not Forgotten, which I've heard such great reviews about, and I continue to hear people rave about it, it just was not for me. The next question is, what are 2 great books by the same author? And This is like a video in and of itself. So Taylor Jenkins Reid, I mean, Evelyn Hugo, One True Loves. I am knee deep in Daisy Jones right now, and I can tell you that I am loving it, and I don't imagine this is going to go off track in any way for me. So far, Evidence of the Affair, everything I've read by Taylor Jenkins Reid, I would recommend. Frederick Bachman, Beartown and Us Against You. It's the first book in the sequel, both amazing. Grab a box of tissues, have them by your side. Basically do that for Taylor Jenkins Reid also. I did a whole video about books by Emily Giffin that I love, books by Ella Fair Burke that I love. I am rereading the Patricia Cornwell Kay Scarpetta series, early John Grisham, like Time to Kill, Firm, Pelican Brief, The Client, all great books. Marion Keyes, I'm like trying to like resist the temptation of turning around. So many Marion Keyes books that I just think are absolutely amazing. Margaret Atwood, Robber Bride, Handmaid's Tale, Cat's Eye, on and on and on and on and on. So maybe this will be another video that I do of multiple books by the same author. The next question are 2 books that you bailed on, like wish you bailed on, or hated. So I feel like we could jump back a couple questions to Luckiest Girl Alive and All Is Not Forgotten, but let's come up with some more. I think I touched on this book lightly in my like 2018 wrap up. I read The Elizas by Sarah Shepard, and she did Pretty Little Liars and The Perfectionists, which I love, and those are very high school centric books. And The Elizas I think was supposed to be like an adult thriller. It was just bad. Like nothing good came of this. I don't know why I continued to force myself to read it. It just wasn't good. It completely disappointed me. It was not that same fun vibe of those other books. I'm trying to think of like earlier books that I've read. Like thinking about college, like anything by William Faulkner. I wish I could have DNF'd. Hated reading him. Oh, this is awful. I'm trying to think of other books. I know there's plenty, and I do think I need to get better about DNFing because I will push through on a book thinking that it's going to get better, and sometimes it does, but usually if I'm like not feeling it, I have DNF books and then come back to them. I did that with the Leanne Moriarty earlier this year. What Alice Forgot, I was having a hard time getting into it. All in, I wound up liking it okay. I didn't think it was the best thing ever. So yeah, let's leave it there. And if I think of another one as I progress in this, I'll shout it out. The next question is 2 favorite reads so far this year. And when I did the mid-year freakout tag, I talked about my love of Beartown, which I stand by, and my love of The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I also stand by. But in the interest of giving you guys some more, I have 2 books that I read pretty recently that I also am putting so far on that top 10 list. And the first one, which surprises me to the high heavens because this is not a book I ever would have picked up had I not become podcast obsessed, which made me Victoria Schwab obsessed, which led me to Vicious. And I loved this book. And at the time I'm posting this, I don't know if you've seen my monthly review yet. So this is completely not in my wheelhouse. I don't do superhero stuff. I don't do any kind of like fantasy sci-fi kind of, it's just not what I'm attracted to. But I was listening to podcasts with Victoria Schwab, which I've talked about in another video. And I became so fascinated with her as a writer and as a creator, and her talking about the stories she tells and sort of her passion for her stories and her passion for writing. And it really made me want to read things that she wrote. So knowing I'm not really, normally YA is not something I gravitate towards, and sort of just kind of like checking out the stories she wrote, this is the one that seems the most appealing to me, and I'm so happy I picked it up. So this is about 2 kind of former best friends, Eli and Victor, who senior year in college, they're doing their thesis. They're both sort of in medical-ish courses, I would say. And basically they make this discovery that when people survive a near-death experience, so something horrible happens and you die for a certain amount of time and get brought back to life, that you can come back with sort of superhuman powers. and they become obsessed with doing that. And this book opens up sort of 10 years after the fact, and Victor has just escaped from jail and he is on the hunt for Eli. And this becomes sort of, and there's like a quote in the beginning of the book, like it's not about good versus evil, it's about like bad versus worse. And that's probably like not the right, just killing it. Oh no, between bad and worse. And basically they each become what's called these extraordinaries, or EOs, which are people who have had the near-death experience and come back. And this happens to people all around the world, like whether you were in like a car accident and are brought back to life or whatever it is. Most people don't try to make it happen for themselves like Eli and Victor do. But basically this is the result of them doing that, the kind of the path each of them is on, cast of characters in their worlds. And it's very interesting because it's very morally gray, and I can see at times how you would root for Eli and times you would root for Victor, and sort of the mission that they are each on and their belief in the mission that they're each on. I did pick a side. I'm not going to tell you which one it is. I will tell you I already picked up Vengeful, and I'm excited for it. And then the second book that I also have raved about this one already is Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. And this is a thriller that is so dark and twisted, and I loved every single minute of it. I discovered her at Thriller Fest last year. I got a chance to meet her and talk to her about this book this year, which basically like made my day. And this book is just so, I just thought it was so good. It is definitely dark. There's a lot of triggers in this. It is also morally gray in a lot of ways. There are unlikable characters that I find myself rooting for. There's people who do some pretty horrible things, but she just completely went for it. And I love when I talked to her about this book, she basically was like, she's like, I had nothing left to lose is how I felt when I was writing this book. And this is her 5th book. So she sort of poured all of herself into it, and you can completely see it in the pages. And I just love it. The next question is to name 2 new favorite booktubers. And these 2 ladies are not new to BookTube, but they were new to me in the past few months. And it's Shelby from Shelby Taggart Reads and Leanne from Literary Diversions. And I share similar tastes with both of these ladies, especially when it comes to thrillers. And I find that they just give so many recommendations. I love their wrap-ups, I love their content, I love their enthusiasm about the books. They just both do such a good job talking about the books that they're reading or books they've picked up and why they liked something or why they didn't. And I feel like they're both just incredibly relatable. Like I said, such good energy from both of them. And I just am constantly jotting down recommendations from each of them every time I watch their videos. So I love when you discover a booktuber and then you like backtrack and look at a whole bunch of their old videos. The only like downside of that is my TBR is like got huge from both of them, but highly recommend them both. I will link their channels down below. But just great content, great ladies, like I said, great energy. So yes, 2 more booktubers that I love. The next question is to name a book that you have read twice. And if you follow me, you know I love to reread. So I'm doing a complete 2019 reread project. We'll see how I do with it. I have read 7 of the 13 books that I've picked so far, but I have reread so many thrillers. I've read Gone Girl multiple times. I've read Sharp Objects multiple times. Basically every Marion Keyes book, a whole bunch of Emily Giffin books, Something Borrowed, Something Blue, Baby Proof. I have read, I'm rereading the Patricia Cornwell series. I have reread Linda Fairstein's books. I have read Kate White's books multiple times. I have read Margaret Atwood. I just reread The Handmaid's Tale again this year. I've, let me see, what else? I did Animal Husbandry this year by Laura Zigman, The Client by John Grisham. I reread The Romantics by Gail Niederhofer. I feel like, again, I'm trying not to turn around and cheat. So many books. And I basically will continue to reread books. I just love being in a story multiple times. And again, I feel like a broken record when I say these things, but I always read like with a reader's eye, and then I read with a writer's eye. So a lot of the times, especially with thrillers, I'm reading it to kind of like go back and see where the clues were or what maybe I have missed or the structure. So sometimes I read it from sort of like an educational standpoint for me, but at the end of the day, I also read it because I love the stories. So even if I know the ending, it doesn't make me shy away from rereading a book. I love a good reread. The next question is to read 2 fabulous quotes from books you've read recently. And I am someone who underlines and dog ears and everything, and there's just an endless amount of them, but I tried to pick some that don't necessarily give anything away. That would be completely obnoxious if I like did a spoiler. So the first one I picked is from Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and it's, do you ever feel like your life got away from you somehow? Lately it feels like my whole life has a similar feeling to when you check the clock on a Saturday and realize it's already 4:30. I just don't understand how I got here. I just love her writing. I mean, basically every single one of her books is like one giant underlined quote. I just think she's such an incredible writer, and there's so many good one-liners and paragraphs and turns of phrases and everything. So anything Taylor Jenkins Reid is basically like one giant quote. And in the same vein is Frederick Bachman. So I picked Us Against You, and this is horrible. I should have flipped to the page before I started. So this is no spoilers, no anything in this. And this is, like I said, the second book, not that it matters, the sequel to Beartown. But the quote reads, "The path back to normal life is indescribably long, once death has swept the feet out from under those of us who are left. Grief is a wild animal that drags us so far out into the darkness that we can't imagine ever getting home again, ever laughing again. It hurts in such a way that you can never really figure out if it actually passes or if you just get used to it." You guys, Frederick Bachman and Taylor Jenkins Reid are both 2 writers that completely break my heart with their writing. Like, it is just that incredible and moving, and I have such like author envy and hero worship for both of them as creators and writers and the stories they tell. You can talk about like reading books over and over again. I will read all of their books over and over again because it's just that beautiful to me. I also, on a lighter note, I did an entire video about Rachel Hollis's newest book, Girl Stop Apologizing, which is full of a lot of like feel good, mantra, you got this kind of stuff, which I love. I will link the video if you haven't seen it, but basically that entire book is like, makes me want to like get up and like fist pump and all of that great stuff. But one of her mantras is sort of with everything you're doing, and it's about sort of giving you the tools you need to achieve the goals in your life, is to go all in. And I talked about this in that video where I wrote it on a Post-it note, I slapped it on the mirror in my bedroom, and I look at it every day, and I just keep reminding myself that whatever it is you're doing, and sort of, you know, my overarching goal, dream is to be published, is to just keep writing and go all in and just not let go of it and not sort of let anything get in the way of it. So quote number 3, I'm cheating, go all in. So the last prompt is, of course, to tag some other booktubers in this, and since I am late to the game, and this is just how I always roll, I'm just gonna tag everybody in it. So if anybody has yet to do this tag, but you wanna do it, go for it, consider yourself tagged. And if you do create your own video, for sure let me know down below so I can be sure to check yours out. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and hopefully you enjoyed this tag video. I love to do these like every once in a while to switch stuff up, and I also feel like it's a great way to sort of like get the brain churning and start talking about some books that's not just something that has been on a TBR in like a readathon that I'm doing, or not just a monthly wrap up. So I love kind of looking through the archives and sort of thinking about my books in a different way. So hopefully that was helpful and fun for all of you guys too. But I will see you next time round, and thank you again for watching, hanging out today, all that good stuff. And I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, evening, morning, depending on when you're watching this. So bye everybody.